Agenda is regarding AWC City Legislative Conference. This was discussed in finance and bringing it forward. I've already registered and booked my room. I'm hoping that council will approve my attendance to this. That's on the city's behalf for the Association of Washington Cities. Down in Olympia, it is for February 13th and 14th. I will arrive Tuesday night on the 12th, all day, Wednesday, half a day. So, we do have money in the budget for training and travel, and due to our new travel codes and stuff that needs to be brought before council. Any discussion from council?
What's the purpose of the
in your packet
training?
You have the legislative, and it has the agenda as well as far as everything that will be going on in the leadership workshop for AWT.
So what's the benefit to the city?
So they can bring back and share all this great information that was an invitation to everyone in this city.
Like some other city advantages to that, one of the things that the insurance companies look at when they're deciding whether to insure a city is whether the electeds are maintaining reasonable continuing education on certain affairs, and certainly since AWC happens to run one of the programs that we would be looking at, it would be reasonable to use their continuing education. Also, if on the AWC legislative agenda this year, I believe they have support for the local speed limits bill, which would save us significant costs on traffic surveys for no-brainer low speed limits that we just need to get a traffic survey occasionally to reconfirm, because anything, anytime we have a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit right now, the state does not trust the city to establish that sort of speed limit without paying an engineer to go out and rubber stamp the obvious.
There's also public records requests on the agenda this year.
Yes, that could also save us quite a bit of money.
Help the city a lot. I bet you are. Any other questions from council?
Nobody else?
Nobody else RSVP. Patty sent it out to everybody, and nobody responded. I responded. I asked my boss if I had the time off, and granted. It's already been paid for on my account, and it'd just be nice if I can get reimbursed. If not, I'm going. I've paid for it.
I was just going to ask that. Is that something that you submit for reimbursement for?
Yes. It's already been put on my credit card.
Where would we pay that from? Do we have a council?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And training.
$500.
And dues for organizations that are specific to council.
What's the total expenditure?
$378.54. That's hotel and registration.
So is the budget for the whole council the $500, or is that?
$750, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think we used any last year.
No.
We didn't use any.
But I still put money in there because I think it's good for council to go to training.
Yes, or to bring training to us. I think we have discussed in finance also that that's something we should look at later this year, bringing some of the training to the city for all council to be able to attend.
Any other questions? Council's pleasure?
Move forward.
Oh, for the workshop again.
Next item on the agenda, the extended reporting coverage.
And I just wanted to bring this back to the forefront. The deadline is March 1st, so the letter has to be sent to CIAW stating our intent to do the extended reporting period insurance, which is for the wrongful act claims. It's the tail coverage. When they did away with the insurance, when they didn't renew, then this will just protect us. Again, it's only a 2-year policy, and the total amount for 24 months was $81,823. 12 months was $40,911. The insurance company, CIAW, declined to extend it out to 3 years, even though we did ask for that. They only feel that 2 years is as far out as they want to go. So,
And what's the typical statute of limitations for claims that 3?
3
Yeah,
years.
so we get full extension of coverage for things that happened 3 years ago, and 3 years of extension on things that happened 1 year ago.
1 year.
We were naked on the last year of claims that happened last year. So anybody who's saving their claim until for their own good to file sooner.
They
no,
won't give
there's
it.
no 3 years. It's 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years is $81,823.
31,000?
81.
81,000.
Thought we discussed this before and we decided to go for 1 year. That was my understanding.
We've talked about it, I know.
I think it went back to finance and then came back here.
Oh, okay.
And so to make the decision whether we can afford 2 years or just do 1 year, we have to make a decision by March.
Yeah, I understand that.
So you have to have it approved by council by the 25th of February.
There you go.
Because staff would have to have time to craft a letter. I can certainly craft a letter and bring back on who's signing the letter.
Well, I think that would be our city risk manager.
I was actually thinking the mayor, but, whichever is your.
That would work too.
So,
Councilmember McKim.
is this coverage that our new insurer might offer?
No.
It's not something that we're going to entertain?
No, because this is, with CIAW, we had a claims-made policy.
Right.
With our new carrier, it's an occurrence-based policy, and so the burden is on the prior carrier, first and foremost. I can ask them to give us an extended reporting period, but it would probably be so expensive.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be worth your guys'
A new company doesn't like to write a sale on somebody else's policy because they have none of the information what went on during that prior policy. CIAW at least has all of the information on pending claims, on possible pending claims, on situations that might generate future claims.
Plus they were covering
Yeah.
that during the time anyway.
Yeah, they're already roped into any existing claims about those same issues, so.
So the only thing that this gives you is a peace of mind for 2 years that in this last year and prior, if anybody came back and said, I was wrongfully terminated, or I had a car accident and you should have paid me for it, that's the coverage, that saving grace for the city for 2 more years.
Just seems immediate.
Yeah.
The alternative.
Usually, yeah.
You know, and maybe
Price
a
based
year
on
is
risk.
sufficient because any risk that we would be looking at would probably be.
Could maybe there be some way that we could sit down and kind of figure out down the line and possible claims that may come out of the woodwork and see whether there would be anything that we go back more than a year that could come forward, or, I mean, is there some kind of a brief study on this? I mean,
It's extremely hard to estimate something like that because this covers our legal and defense expenses as well as the claim itself. And you have those even if it's a bogus claim that has no basis to it, we still end up paying out of pocket for the lawyer. So if we're going to estimate the potential claims on this, we have to estimate not just how many actual claims there might, valid claims there might be against us, but how many people are going to file claims that have no basis, but they can file a claim and use up our lawyer's time.
Well, yeah, but you have $40,000 worth of wire time.
That's what,
I mean, I don't know, I think, I just can't imagine what we would have coming forward 2 years back.
I agree, I
That
think
would
1
pound
year
it.
back would be sufficient.
So with statute of limitations, 1 year back, puts us 2 years forward. The 3-year statute of limitations, going back 1 year still puts us 2 years forward.
2 years after.
But that's a lot of money to spend on
Right.
maybe.
I think our biggest concern is the previous 12 months.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Mhm.
So is council in agreement that we would like to see something come forward authorizing a 1 or 12-month health coverage?
That is my
I
recommendation.
think 12 months should be fine. Or 6 months.
I think we'll go with
that's not up.
12 months.
They only do it 12 months.
Councilmember Consent?
I guess I have a question, as I read this memo and I see that 60 days, no additional premium, 12 months for 40 grand and 24 months for 81 grand. Is that looking forward about how much longer those claims, if we received a claim in the next 12 months for alleged acts during the covered period, or is that 12 months back and 24 months back?
No, it's 12 months going forward back to the covered period.
Okay.
So if there's an employee sitting out here right now, writing the fence as to whether or not they want to file a wrongful termination lawsuit for the last 12 months, if you extend it out 1 year, they have all of 2013 to think about it and file it at the last hour, or they could wait till January 1 of 2014 and then the city would be on the hook for it. I can also check with CIAW to see if they would split the payment by year, so we're paying $40,000 in 2013 and $40,000 in 2014. And then talk to them at the next meeting if you'd like to know that information.
Maybe Councilmember Putnam might know, is there a way that we can try to carve that out? Because I think our most risky period was 2012. Is it typical for insurers to say, we'll extend the 2012 reporting period for?
No, typically, they've given us coverage for this entire period, and they would just write a table that covers the entire period, and claims age off. So,
Yeah.
you know, they're extending it. The most coverage they're giving us is for the most recent year anyway, because it's the most likely to have claims. Even if things were constant, it'd be the most likely to generate additional claims just because it's the most recent expired year. So, yeah, they age off how quickly claims are likely to come, and then price it based on their assessment of the risk that a claim would occur. And in this case, our contract stipulated that they could not exceed 200% of the annual premium of our previous coverage for wrongful act. And I suspect, I don't have it in front of me, but I suspect that's what they're charging us, the maximum their rating allows, which would also be why they wouldn't be willing to write any longer than they're required to.
There's no requirement that they be willing to write tail coverage for the statute of limitations?
No.
Any other questions?
Well, realistically, it's a cost saving for cities that don't lose their insurance, but they don't have to pay for, if they have to write it forward 3 years, they'll just charge you more this year, so they don't have to charge as much extra when they do cancel you.
Gamble.
Yeah.
Any other questions from council?
Bet this blackjack won't come up, because it's already seen for it and go by. They're eating it dead.
Any other questions from council? Council's pleasure?
Move forward.
And so we're in agreement that we want to see 12 months move forward?
But I'd also like to hear the possibility of
The possibility of splitting it?
split.
Okay. So we have those two items, have a 2-week cancel. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Drug and Alcohol Consortium breach.
This is a tough one. So I just recently found out that we have not been participating in a drug and alcohol consortium that pertains to any CDL driver operating city equipment. So our public works crew has CDL license, and it is a federal law that we have to do random drug testing and pre-employment drug testing when you hire any public works employees. So I knew that AWC had a drug and alcohol consortium, and you don't have to be a member of their risk management service agency to be a part of the drug consortium. And I talked with the staff up there, and they said that what they would recommend is that we get into the annual membership as a program at $175, that we do a pre-employment testing because we've, well, at least in the last 5 or 6 years, I couldn't find anything to indicate that the city was participating in a random drug program. So they recommended doing what they call a pre-employment drug testing on all CDL drivers. I included the 2 drivers for the community service van, plus the building official and the water guy, because they drive the vehicles, for just the pre-employment. And then it'll drop back down to a random testing of just those that have a CDL. So it's $52 per person to do a pre-employment drug testing. You're going to pay it twice this year. You're going to pay it once for the pre-employment testing and then once again for the random drug testing, which they wanted me to make sure I let you know that our staff may not get called in for random drug testing this year, but they're in this pool with all the other cities, so it's kind of a roll of the dice as to whether or not we do that, or we get called in for it. Testing is included in this, from the not testing, training. Training is included for supervisors of those that supervise the CDL employees. They are willing to help us draft a drug and alcohol policy to address this. I did talk to Abby Shannon, who is the Teamster representative, and she asked me to ask the council to consider opening the collective bargaining unit to discuss this matter only, because it does affect her workers, her union workers. It doesn't affect the directors, it just affects the shop, primarily the shop personnel. So I would recommend that we get on board with the consortium ASAP as quickly as we possibly can. It's a huge fine if we do not. If one of our workers were to get into an accident and the feds were to find out, or DOT was to find out that we didn't have this policy in place, it's a huge fine to the city.
Comments from council?
If it complies with federal statutes, then why would it be a bargaining unit issue?
Because it's not part of their agreement
We don't have any drug and alcohol in the collective bargaining
at all.
At all.
Councilmember Sager?
Yeah, I brought that up last time in our, I believe I talked to you about putting it in the agreement, and I think it got overlooked when you were in negotiations. It's something that we should have done around here a long time ago. I've said it time and time again, that these people operating this equipment, according to the feds and everything else, have to go through the drug and alcohol testing, but nobody's ever done anything about it. Now, again, when we do it, we're not going to send a notice out and say, okay, Monday morning, we're going to have drug and alcohol testing. I mean, so this is going to have to be just, guess what? You're in the Army now.
To that point, how do they do it? If it's part of a consortium, that it seems like the economies of scale are to centralize everything.
It is. They have a company that they work with, Artis they work with, and they let them manage the whole random drug testing, including the pre-employment. So what happens is a confidential envelope comes to me and, I get to know who that person has been chosen. So say for example, because Ken is a building official, he has a CDL, he's the one that gets caught. I would have to transport him. Without him, I would just have to go up to him that day of the exam or the testing and say, hey, Ken, you need to come with me. Literally drive him and then provide the sealed envelope to the facility, and so there's no break in the chain of command. And then they can take the testing, and then I bring him back. If it was one of the public workshop personnel, Ken would be responsible as the acting director I would let him know, and then he would go at the appropriate date and time and take that person. So there's all kinds of custody, chain of custody involved in this. It's part of the training that we have to undergo, and it's a 2-hour training to ensure that we're in compliance. But they have a facility already close by that will manage all of this for us.
So it's not like you'd be driving to Seattle or here.
No, but it'd be somebody maybe in Fife, Tacoma, or Auburn.
There also are companies that come out with vans and they'll just show up on a Friday morning or something, or a Monday morning, and test everybody that's there. I don't know if anybody's looked into that cost or not, because what I'm understanding here is you're gonna have the cost of 2 people out of production for 2 hours, 3 hours, depending on what the travel time is involved here. So if we had some look at what it would cost us to have somebody come in that is licensed and everything and do it on our premises, we could save the transportation cost of 1 person, if that would work. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
They do
I'm
offer
seeing
that.
hands going up all over here.
Can I just answer this?
Go ahead and answer.
So if we choose to do our own program, then I would have to learn everything there is about the program through the FEB and the Washington Department of Transportation. Whereas if we go through the consortium, that burden is taken off the city, other than the cost of me transporting or Ken transporting that employee to the nearest facility that they designate for us. It's gonna be within a 50-mile radius of wherever that may be.
I noticed on their specs, actually for their consortium, they do offer mobile options. They'll charge you mileage plus a $95 fee to come out here and do it. So if it's just 1 person and it wasn't very far, it might not be worth it, but if we're gonna do the pre-employment on everybody,
We
I
could
think for
probably
that one,
use
it probably
that.
would make sense to have them come out for that, yeah.
As I understand it, LT, the police department has, drug testing policy already in place.
We have a drug test, we do drug testing for pre-employment only. Once they've been hired, it's not part of the union, contract as far as drug testing, so we have no policy, recommending drug testing once they're hired.
And the federal law does not apply to anybody outside of the CDL. It's just for the drivers with a CDL. The city can have a policy to do something different, but every city, most of the cities that I've worked for, only do those with a CDL outside of the pre-employment.
So, in your conversation with Debbie Shannon, then she knows that we need to do this, that it's by law, but she wants us to open up the contract and start bargaining on that. That's not going to be resolved. This is a conversation I know that we had at the finance committee. Is if we start opening up the contract and start going through and doing the negotiations and looking at things like we had promised that we would do, like March, spring, and we still thought we'd start looking at March. So, and we get this in place for the CDLs. I know we've talked about doing it for all employees, and that's something that I think we're going to try to work really hard, hopefully, I don't know. But to get this part, I mean, can we get this in motion, start getting everything going without having that negotiated in the contract? That's my concern. How does that time frame work?
Well, my discussion with Abby was her simply saying, I have always wondered about why you guys didn't have one. And that's all she said on it. And then she just said, well, I think we probably should look at opening up the collective bargaining to discuss this. so I didn't push her on that. I'm just bringing it forward to you guys.
If I could make a suggestion on that, I know they're getting tired of us saying, well, we can't do it right now, but soon.
Well, I mean, if we set a date and start.
That's what I'm wondering, is could we have an MOU allowing this that also specifies a date certain for opening negotiations, so that they don't get us opening negotiations right now, but they get a date certain in writing for negotiations? Would that be enough of a concession to their concerns?
I would think so, for Councilmember Cyphers.
I think again, I don't believe that the union can override
No,
state operated law. I mean, that would be like, you'd have to have a negotiations with the union in there, because you're requiring the employees to have a driver's license. I mean, you can't do that. You can't put everything in the world in there, of what their, part of their collective bargaining agreement is. And this is a state or federal law, so it doesn't make any difference what's in your bargaining agreement.
Well, I suspect what they're concerned with is number of, the law requires us to test them. The law doesn't set out our internal policies for what we do in the event of a positive test. Do we allow them a retest? Do we verify this or that? Do we give them, all of that would be our side of things. It's not what's specified in the federal law. So I imagine they're just looking for your basic, basic employer policies for, okay, he tested positive, now what?
I believe that there is some standards that are set out under the CDL requirements.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things that the program would do, is to help us write that policy.
Yeah.
Councilmember Jones?
I was gonna say that mostly this is gonna be a letter of understanding with the union that we're going to implement this seat process and it's limited.
With federal law.
And so we're in compliance. And then, you're right, as far as the rest of the requirements, that's a negotiated portion of that letter of understanding. But, you know, we can still implement this, we can start the conversation with them and work out the particulars of the letter of understanding. That's all it's gonna be.